Okay, what are the fundamental types of interest rates? If we look to the US market, there is the so-called federal funds rate. This is the interest rate at which depository institutions actively trade balances held at the Federal Reserve. So in other words, this is the interest rate that is applied by the Federal Reserve to the banking industry. On the other hand, the treasury rates, these are the interest rates an investor earns on the treasury bills and treasury bonds. In other words, this is the interest rate that applies when the government borrows in its own currency. The third one, the treasury bills. So when we say the treasury bills, what we mean is the short-term discount securities issued by the treasury. If you go to, for example, this Yahoo website, you can see that there is the so-called markets here. And if you go to the item US Treasury bond rates, if you click it, basically this is what you see. And here we can notice that these are the yields of different treasury bonds and bills. So for example, if you look at to the short-term side, which is the 13-week treasury bill, it has a yield of 2.09%. And you can look at the other one, which is the treasury yield for 5 years. It is 2.77 and so on. You can see the 10-year bond, which again they report the yield here on this table. And there's also the treasury yield for the 30-year bond. So usually in the US market, you can see that these three, like 5-year, 10-year, and 30-year benchmark rates are obtained from the yields of the treasury bonds. Okay, depending on these different maturities, you can see different yield rates. If you look at the Chinese market, let's go to another website here, tradingeconomics.com. So this is another useful website to find some macroeconomic indicators. If I go to the interest rates, again you can see that the Chinese central bank decides on the benchmark interest rates, and as of basically June 14th, that was the last decision. The People's Bank of China basically left the interest rates for market operations unchanged. This happened after the Federal Reserve's decision to start raising the interest rates. So you can see in time, especially in the recent, let's say 10 years, the benchmark rates have been falling down in the Chinese market as well. And currently it is at its historical low levels. So you can find more information about different markets. So different countries might have slightly different conventions or benchmark rates, but in most of the economies, the central banks have these benchmark rates, which applies to the banking industry, and also the treasury rates are obtained from the yields of the government bonds or government treasury bills. So these are the fundamental types of interest rates.